Hi everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. This is a video about the best books of 2021 so far and also the most disappointing. So I was going to do the worst books of 2021 so far, but I think I'm going to save that video for the end of the year just because I can't be bothered to do it twice. I don't want to talk about the worst books over and over again. I've decided to split it up into best books and most disappointing rather than worst. I kind of covered some of these books in the mid-year book freakout tag video that I did a couple of days ago. I can't remember when I uploaded it compared to this video, but you'll have seen it probably. But there have since been some other books that I've read that I've actually really enjoyed, so it's going to be a bit more fresh. So here is my list of best books of 2021 so far. First of all, we have a recent 5-star read that I need to scream about, and I am going to, or have already done so in my July wrap up, and that is my Dark Vanessa. So this one is a very, very dark contemporary book. It's about a woman called Vanessa. When she was 15, she was in a relationship with her teacher, who was 42, I think, at the time. Not that it matters what age her teacher was, but there was a big age gap, is my point. It's told in dual timelines, so you see her join her new school and get to know the teacher. I feel like I should be using quotes for all of these things I'm describing in regards to her relationship with the teacher, because it's not a relationship, it's abuse, but we'll get into that. And then in the other timeline, it's present day and the teacher is still teaching, and he has been accused by another person who is an ex-student of his of abusing her. Vanessa is actually still in contact with this teacher, and she doesn't view their relationship as abuse at all. She thinks he loved her and he made her feel special. That's basically what the book is about. So you explore the start of their relationship and you follow Vanessa through the years. You see her in present day and you see how she has been affected by this relationship again. And it's so dark. It was very difficult for me to read in places, and trigger warnings for everything: abuse, emotional abuse, manipulation, rape, child abuse, child pornography. There's a lot in this book, but honestly it's so well written. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm making my friend read it now, and I might make Quill read it as well. I don't know if he'd really be into it, but I loved it. I loved the way that the author explored Vanessa's mindset basically and her attitude towards everything, because she had gone through years and years of abuse with this man, and she was so manipulated by him and kind of like molded by him that she thought it was an okay relationship. And even when the other character is coming out with all of this stuff that happened to her, Vanessa was like, yeah, but that's not how it was with me. And it was so heartbreaking to read and so difficult, but really worth it as well. I love the character that the author has created in Vanessa. I think she's such an interesting person. While it is a dark book, I did find it a little bit hopeful as well at the end, which was good. Some bits it's not that I didn't like them. There are some parts of it that I wish had ended differently. I'm not going to say what they are, but they didn't. And that's not necessarily a bad thing about the book, but that just meant that it showed me that I was so connected to the book, and I really cared about Vanessa's well-being and the well-being of these other students who are also affected by this creep. I'm going to do a full review on this book because it's honestly fantastic. I've seen some negative reviews of it as well, and I'm tempted to do a video reacting to them, because I think that from the ones that I've read, people are very, very wrong, and they have the wrong end of the stick with this one. The author isn't trying to portray this student-teacher thing as a proper relationship. She's not trying to excuse anything that the teacher has done. She is just trying to show how Vanessa has been affected by all of this, and some of the reviewers or the reviews didn't really seem to understand that, and it was winding me up, so I had to stop reading them. This is definitely one that I would recommend if you think you can handle it. It's very dark, so only read it if you're not likely to be triggered or upset by it, because it's not for everyone, but I would recommend it if you think that you can enjoy it, because it's a very good book. Anyway, moving on to something a little bit more lighter. I also really loved Shipped by Angie Hockman. This is an adult romance. It's about a woman who is up for a promotion at work, and she has kind of a negative relationship with one of her co-workers who she is technically kind of in charge of. They work together and he is very, very unhelpful. They work remotely, so he's not in the same office as her, and there are some things that kind of get lost via the internet when they're trying to communicate and work together, and he just comes across as very unhelpful. But anyway, they're both up for the same promotion, and their boss sends them on a cruise because they promote cruises and other trips and stuff. The boss sends them on the cruise in order to kind of figure out how to promote it. So they both go on that together, and then romance ensues, and it turns out that Graham is actually kind of a sweetheart, and he doesn't mean to be a knob. He's just, you know, he's a guy that you have to work with. And then the main character realizes that she also has some shit going on, and for a romance book, I was actually quite surprised at how deep this was. It talks a lot about climate change and conservationism, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Also, if you can hear my neighbour drilling or whatever they're doing out there, I don't know what it is they're doing, but they're making so much noise and I'm so sorry, but it's so hot here in the UK, I have to have the window open. The next book I want to mention is actually only a 4-star book, maybe 4.5. I don't think it's 5, it might be 5, I'm not sure. Is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the 4th book in her Wayfarer series. It's the final one and it was amazing. So this is one that's set on a planet and there are no human characters. They're all different types of alien species, alien to us. As always, the relationships between the characters was the main focus of the book, and the way that they treated each other and the way that they respected each other or came to respect each other. I loved it so much. I love Becky Chambers so much. I would recommend everything that she has ever written because her books are amazing. And again, there's not really much plot, but that's okay. I mean, the plot is there, but that's not what the book is about. Her books all do have a plot, and it's a very interesting plot, but you can tell that her main concern is her characters, and I really appreciate that. I love it. Next is another 5-star book, and that is Crown of Feathers. This one is a YA fantasy book. It was one of my 5-star predictions, and I was correct. It's a really, really well-written fantasy book. It's about 2 sisters. The main one, whose name I can't remember, is wanting to be a phoenix rider, and she finds a phoenix egg and it hatches and she bonds with it, but then her sister kills it. She kills the phoenix. So the main character goes off without her sister because she doesn't want to talk to her anymore, and she goes to find the other guy phoenix riders, except, like I said, they're all guys. To them, a woman can't be a phoenix rider, so she dresses up as a man, tries to get into the phoenix riding kind of school that way. That's the basic, very basic kind of start of the plot, but it does get a lot deeper. There's a war going on, there's history in this fantasy land, there's mythology as well, and it's very, very complex, and I love that. I loved that the author went into so much detail in this book, and I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel. I've actually started it, but I wasn't really in the mood for YA fantasy, so I wanted to put it down until I was, because I want to give the next one 5 stars as well, and I want to love it. So yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I did really, really love Crown of Feathers. The next one I want to mention is My Lovely Wife. This is now there's the ice cream van. My Lovely Wife is an adult thriller. This one is about a guy who's, I don't think ever named, I don't think he's got a name, but it's told from his point of view, and he and his wife are serial killers and they work together to find their next target. And that's the basics of the book. I don't really want to go into too much detail because it's a thriller, and I like to go into my thrillers not knowing anything. I think that's the best way. But this one is very intense. It tackled thriller books or a thriller plot in a very different way to anything I've read recently or read before. And I love that you weren't meant to like any of the characters. Like, the guy is a serial killer, his wife is a serial killer. You're not meant to root for either of them, but somehow it really drew me in and intrigued me. So yeah, I would recommend it if you're into thrillers. It was a really good one. Next we have another thriller, and that is The Good Sister. This one is set in Australia, I think. I'm pretty sure, and it's about a woman who is perhaps on the autism spectrum. I can't remember if it's ever mentioned explicitly, but that's what it seemed like to me. She has a very close relationship with her sister, and the two of them have a secret that's not really mentioned about something that happened in their past. The two of them are obviously keeping that secret, and then the main character gets kind of a boyfriend or a love interest, I suppose. The other sister kind of starts to worry that she's going to give things away. Their mother is also sick, and that plays a part in the plot as well. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail because it is a thriller, but I have posted a review of this one on my YouTube channel if you want to go and check it out. I'll leave a link up above. I've also reviewed Crown of Feathers as well if you're interested in that. Next, I would also recommend The Vanishing Half. This was actually the first book that I read in 2021, and it was fantastic. So this, as I'm sure you all know because Brit Bennett is a very popular author at the moment, is about 2 sisters who can be white passing, and one of them certainly leans into that. She moves to, I think, California and marries a white man, and they have a daughter, and she doesn't say anything about her background. She doesn't actually say that she is black, but she is. And then the other sister leaves their town initially, but then comes back. Although she is light-skinned, she has a very dark-skinned daughter, and so that's kind of the talk of the town, really, because in this town there's a lot of prejudice against darker skinned black people. They've been trying for years and years to kind of make each generation lighter skinned, because in their eyes that's superior. Both sisters are dealing with a lot, but it's not actually following them the entire time, it's following their daughters. So obviously one is white and one is black. The white one, who lives in California, she doesn't know anything about her family history or her background until they come across each other one day, and that causes a lot of upset, drama. Honestly, I loved it. It was a fantastic book. I think I gave it 5 stars. From what I can remember, I did, and I'm really looking forward to reading The Mothers by Brit Bennett as well. So I started that a little while ago, but I started it as an ebook, and I think it's one that I prefer to read as a physical book. I don't know why. There's no real reason, it's just something that I want to do. So yeah, I would highly recommend that one. For my last best book of 2021, I have This Place, which is a graphic novel. It's written and drawn by a bunch of Indigenous creators. It's about the history of Canada and some points in Canadian history. Prior to reading it, I didn't know much about Canadian history, and as I was actually reading this book, all of the news came out about the bodies that were found on the sites of residential schools in Canada. I hadn't heard about any of that, but it was in this book, which was kind of like a bit jarring to me, to be honest, because I've gone from knowing very little about Canadian history to finding out a little bit more about it in a very short period of time. So the stories in this book are quite short. Some of them are plain historical, some of them actually have some magical elements to them, and I really enjoyed them. I would highly recommend this book. I think it's very educational for one thing, but also just really lovely in other ways. I love that these authors and creators got to share their stories, and it's definitely one that I will reread in the future, and I think I might like to research certain things that came up in this book more before I reread it, because I think I'll get more out of it if I actually know the context behind some of the stories. Not all of them need context necessarily, but I think having actual historical context would help. And then we have 5 disappointing books of 2021 so far. So there aren't too many. Like I said, these aren't the worst books that I've read, but they are ones that I had very high hopes for. So the first one is Beetry by Emily Henry. I, going by the hype, thought I was going to love this one. It's an adult romance book about 2 writers who swap genres because they're both in writing slumps for one reason or another, and I thought it was going to be really fun and quirky, and well, not necessarily quirky, I don't really love quirky books, but I thought it was going to be fun and entertaining, and it wasn't. It was quite boring, really. It didn't really add anything to the genre. Not that a romance book has to, because it's quite difficult to do that, but nothing really stood out to me. And it wasn't very beachy either. For a book called Beach Read, the setting wasn't very beachy. I spent more time driving around to other people's houses and pubs and stuff rather than being at the beach. Next we have The Initial Insight by Mindy McGinnis. Mindy McGinnis is one of my favourite authors, or is usually one of my favourite authors. She's usually an author that I really enjoy. This one, it wasn't written very well. It just turned out to be really weird, and I don't really have much to say about it, so I didn't love it. I think I gave it 2 stars. Then we have The Death of Vivek Oji. I had heard a lot about this one actually. So it's set in Nigeria, I believe. It's a very short book, and it's about someone called Vivek Oji who is going through a lot of shit, and it's about their death. I don't really want to go into too much detail because, like I said, it is short and I'm worried that I will give too much away. Not that it's like a thriller or anything with twists, it's just, I don't know, is it one that you really want to know more about? I'm not entirely sure. I didn't like this one, really. I think I gave it 2 stars. I read it in basically one sitting, and I thought it was going to be better than it was, and I guess it was kind of hard-hitting because of the subject matter. Vivek Oji is queer and isn't able to be out with their family where they live. It was just all a bit odd, really. The writing style wasn't great, and then there was also incest between cousins, which I don't think is a spoiler. I think it's actually quite triggering. I didn't see the point in that. I didn't think it was necessary to do that. I didn't really get it. So yeah, I gave that one 2 stars. Then we have Leave the World Behind, which is a post-apocalyptic story, potentially. This family is staying in an Airbnb, and then the owners of the B&B show up because there's been a power cut in New York City and they wanted to, you know, go somewhere else. But you never actually find out anything about the apocalyptic event that is potentially happening. You just get hints of it. I thought it was just quite boring, really, and also the writing style was odd. The author, which I do tend to find with a lot of male authors, really, kept comparing things to erections and talking about breasts and boners and shit, so I thought that was unnecessary. I didn't like the writing style, I didn't like the plot. I thought it could have delved a bit deeper into the apocalyptic event instead of being so speculative. It was just a bit, yeah, not really my kind of thing. And then finally we have Ruby Red, which is a very old YA, I guess, fantasy book about time travel. I had heard a lot of good things about this one. It's been turned into a film, I think, a German film, because the book is originally written in German, and it had a lot of hype when I first started booktubing, which is why I picked it up. It's been sat on my shelf too long. I know this is one of those books I probably would have enjoyed back in the day when I first started booktubing at 17, because I would have been in the right age category for it, and I wouldn't have read so many kind of more complex YA books, but this one was very basic and I didn't love it at all, and I probably won't be continuing with the series. I kind of want to read the next one just so I can recap it for recaptains, but I'm in no rush to really pick it up. So those are the best and most disappointing books of 2021. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite book of the year so far has been, and let me know if there are any disappointing books for you as well. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!